Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Realm of Ridiculous, where we talk about Warhammer, but it's old. And before we get started on this podcast, if you enjoy it, go ahead and check out patreon.com/Adeptus Ridiculous, where you can get access to the Discord, bloopers if they happen. You can get a bunch of cool, neato digital posters in all of their amazing form. And also, if you'd like, you can go ahead and purchase those at orchidate.com. However, I would wait a little bit longer for the upcoming Wednesday after this episode is launched. We will be having a major going away sale on a ton of items from the Admiral store, including large discounts on a lot of stuff. So give it a little bit of a wait there, wait and see, get some stuff at a discount, and yeah, all the good things. DK, how the heck are you?
Well, I'm doing just fine, thank you. I love the intros, just like it's like 40K.
But
it's old. That one usually I have to like mute my mic because it always makes me kind of guffaw just a little bit. Even if I've heard it several times, I just You
know, it's the old school. It's the olden days. It's back when the Tomb Kings were mean.
I mean, the Tomb Kings were always.
Yeah, I know.
There's no. But. Are you ready for your mystery quote?
You know, I actually am not, in the sense that like I don't have a whole lot of faith. There's not a lot of fantasy left. Well, that's not true. There's plenty of fantasy left, but there's not enough that I understand. So there's a lot of me that's like, well, gosh darn it, I'll do my best, but we'll see.
So this week, the quote comes from Possum, because I just totally forgot to look for one. And he says this is a gift in the form of a layup. And, I have faith in you. So the quote is, "From dark places I came, and to darker places still I travel, dear heart. Worm-midden and filth my crib, man-flesh and dead thing my home. To the coast of faraway lands I sailed to delve in dusty places, not for glimmer nor spark, but for lizard, weird, parchment, and age-crusted name."
This is considered a layup?
Well, sort of. I can see how it would be, but then I could also see from your perspective how it's like, ooh, what?
Yeah, I don't really get it. But I also I don't look up anything about fantasy. So the only stuff I know about fantasy, besides like the awesome Sigmar models, is the things that you have told me.
True. So the big hints here are there is sailing, there is a coast, it's very dark and dreary, and I think those are your big hints. It's dreary, foggy coast, sailors, and we'll say I think it goes without saying that this is kind of evil.
Sure, I'm okay. I've got bad news. You know,
I've been in your shoes so many times. I know exactly how this feels.
Me looking at looking like Thanos right now, like, oh, perhaps I treated you too harshly.
And I'm just like, I know better than to be like, you fool, because I'm like, this is gonna be me on Monday. So I
don't know. I feel like the fans would want you to be like, no, get him back for it. Get him back for it. Yeah, I gotta be honest. I mean, the first thought I thought of was like pirates, or like, I don't know. I gotta be honest. My brain, for some reason, is going towards like the Pirates of the Caribbean and like the evil skeleton crew.
Okay, so you're heading in the right direction. You are definitely in the right direction with Pirates of the Caribbean, Undead crew, skeleton crew, pirates, coast. You're right there. You're on the right track. I think you just don't know what they're called.
No, I don't know what they're called. I don't know what faction this is because I don't know about skeleton pirate crew. Oh crap. Are these the one? Is this the Bone IRS?
No, this isn't the Bone IRS. I think that's an Age of Sigmar thing. I think those are literally like the Bone Reapers?
Yeah, Osiarch Bone Reapers?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Oh, that's not the Bone Heiress? Okay,
No.
what, I don't know the name. I don't know the skeletons that are related to the other. I don't know.
This episode is going to be on Luthor, Harkon, and the Vampire Coast.
Wait, Vampire Coast?
Vampire Coast.
I thought, is there another Vampire Counts?
So I literally wrote this in the script because this exact same thing has happened to me so many times when I was talking with Shaiba. Oh, what episode should we do next? What should the next topic be? And she'd say, oh, Vampire Counts. And I was like, are those the pirates? And she's like, no, you dolt. That's Vampire Coast.
What?
So
there's two factions with vampire in their name, and they both, and the second the suffix from the second word both start with a C.
Yeah. Yep. Vampire. CO actually. Vampire Coast and Vampire Counts.
Okay. All right. Sure, man.
Yep. And Luthor Harkonnen, the Vampire Coast, and the Vampire Counts are actually pretty ridiculously important for the sake of end times. So this is not the last time we'll be talking about the Counts and the Coasts.
Wait. Did you say his name is Luthor Harkonnen?
Harkon. Listen, the amount of times mentally I've said Luthor Harkonnen because of like being Dune pilled.
Yeah, Dune.
It's gonna happen a bunch of times in this episode, I guarantee.
Okay, I thought, because you said Harkonnen twice, and I thought that...
Did I really? Oh,
yes.
No.
I thought they were pulling a Games Workshop where they are just like completely on the nose about it, and they're like, yeah, this is Luthor Harkonnen. And it's actually a girl. She's a Baroness Harkonnen.
Baroness Harkonnen.
Yeah, okay.
God, I already did it twice, and I didn't even know. I was like, oh, I've been so good this episode to not do. Jesus.
Okay.
All right, but yeah, just chat. Bricky, understand. I mean Harkon. If I say Harkonnen, I mean Luthor Harkon. It's so easy to just float off into Harkonnen.
Okay, Luthor Harkon of the Vampire Coasts.
Of the Vampire Coast, yes.
Okay.
But before we can learn about the actual Vampire Coast, we do need to first touch on Luthor Harkon. So Luthor Harkon's origins are a little sketchy because they aren't really for sure known. Luthor has mentioned to people that he used to be someone named Luthor of Harkoni, which was this sort of hill tribe that lived near Lamia, which we've talked about before. But he was supposedly sort of born like a millennium before Sigmar was even born.
Wait a minute. This dude is dripped out of his mind.
Yes, sir. Luthor is kind of he's kind of him. He's kind of dripped.
Wait, sure. He's literally a vampire pirate.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. He becomes one. Yes.
Oh, sorry. Yes, but like he's dripped out of his mind. This is insane.
Dripped out of his gourd for sure.
Okay, that's sick.
Mm-hmm. And I guess it makes sense that he would have lived near Lamia because if you remember from previous episodes, Lamia is where they stole one of the books of Nagash, and that book told how to make the elixir of life, and they super ultra botched it. Well, they didn't super ultra botch it, but they messed it up a little bit, and oops, the elixir of life made us vampires.
Right.
So it makes
Nagash
sense that,
was pissed.
Mm-hmm. Well, Nagash claimed that it was all part of his plan because he wanted to make immortal vampire soldiers that would always heed his call and would be his like greatest lieutenants. So he claims it was all according to plan. Such is the power of Nagash, right?
Yeah, I guess. But will Nagash ever admit to failing anything? Ever? Yeah, of course not. It's Nagash.
It's Nagash copium, like for sure. But based off of fragmented histories, Luthor may have been transformed by someone named Abarash from Nehekara. He was one of the 4 members of the Hand of Abarash who fought alongside him as sort of his dedicated warlord guard. Luthor that's Luthor before he became a vampire, was the master of the harbor guard. The others included the mercenary Varys of Resetra, the soldier of Mangarl of the Southlands, and Wallach of the Harkoni. Wallach would later become Wallach Harkon, who was the founder of the Order of the Blood Dragon Blood Knights, who I think we briefly touched on in the Vampire Counts episode, which I think was one of the really super ultra great troopers that I forget which of the counts got him, but they're just like really dope blood knights that are like on the same level as like maybe a little lower than like a Grail Knight or something.
Wait, I'm sorry. I want to make sure I'm getting this in my head properly. Luthor
Lutr
is Luthor. Luthor Harkon was what is pre-vampire Luthor Harkon of the Vampire Coasts.
Of the Vampire Coasts. Yes.
Jesus Christ. Okay.
It's a lot. And then when End Times comes along, we're going to have Vampire Coasts and Vampire Counts, along with all the other nonsense that's going on.
Okay. All right. Got it. I'm just making sure, man.
With fantasy, I do not blame you one little bit.
40K has just as many problems, but I'm learning new things, so I'm just trying to digest it.
Fair. And supposedly there are some fragmented records that indicate that Luthor may have risen in sort of the far eastern area of the Empire as sort of this like mortal necromancer. Because a lot of people believe this because the way Luthor speaks is like this really sort of, it's this dialect that's really, it sounds poetic. And it's like this accent that it's frequent in the eastern parts of the Empire, and it's really hard to just make up and just fake this accent. So a lot of people are like, okay, he's definitely from the eastern parts, which also matches up with what some of the quote-unquote survivors of encounters with Luthor have said as well. Naturally, they only survived because Luthor allowed them to leave. He didn't tap them like a human keg or kill them because he wanted people to sort of spread the horrific tale of the feared Luthor Harkon. And I think he himself literally claimed to these people, yeah, I'm from the eastern reaches of the Empire. I'm from this really remote valley. Tell everyone that, I'm him. And to give it a little more context, here's sort of like this really long quote from Dr. Koopman of Marienburg's College of Navigation, who is consoling a very frustrated student who is sort of learning about Luthor Harkon. You say the stories about Luthor Harkon contradict each other, that the legends make impossible claims and the records must be later forgeries. You complain that it is impossible to know the truth about the Lord of the Vampire Coast. I say that is a blessing, for behind truth, there often lies madness.
Huh. Okay. And so it's clear he's definitely going around being like, is he trying to make a name for himself? Or
he's definitely trying to make a name for himself, for sure.
Just because he wants to be this infamous guy because he's just a megalomaniac or whatever?
Yeah, and we'll talk about this later too, but it's like, it seems to me that in fantasy, when you are either immortal or, well, pseudo-immortal, or you're like a vampire that lives for a very long time, your ambition and your ego just gets so over-bloated that you end up doing a lot of stuff like this. I'm going to conquer the entire world because I'm immortal. Who can stand up to me? That's my new ambition, and it usually leads to their downfall.
Wait, so now I have a second question. Are we still in Luthor time? So isn't he not a vampire yet?
Technically. So we were about to get into that because Luthor doesn't actually have any recollection of when exactly he was turned into a vampire. One of the things scholars hate about talking about Luthor is that everything about him he claims that he is like significantly older than Sigmar, which to Empire scholars is pretty close to heresy. And what frustrates them so much is they'll talk to him, they'll see the records of him, like in that quote, and it'll just be like, well, God, it lines up, and I don't like it. I really there's no way he's that old, but like they kind of have to admit that, like, well, yeah, and he's very frustrating to the scholars.
Right.
But,
and Sigmar, well, because we learned about Sigmar, and like Sigmar is this universe's, I guess, kind of like Big E or whatever, but he's just kind of like a really powerful dude. And so him being older than him doesn't seem abnormal. Like, he's a vampire, right?
True, but Sigmar's also heavily deified, right? Like they have,
well, of course.
And so they don't really want to admit that, like these scholars don't want to admit, like, oh, we don't want to admit that someone's older than literally our deity, right?
But
so
for
really
our purposes, they are 100%. Like it's very clear that like he is probably older than Sigmar.
Oh yes, I think it's actually canon that he is absolutely 100% bona fide older than Sigmar. Yeah.
Sick. Okay. Well, that's just good to know. It also makes him kind of become quite interesting.
Yeah. And again, like the realization that he was a vampire is just kind of strange, because there's going to be shock of all shocks. There's an event later that breaks his mind. But apparently in his own words, he was just like, yep, one night I was born anew. And I'm not exactly sure what that means, but a part of me likes to just jokingly believe that Luthor was just one night he stubbed his toe on like a table and he was like, wow, that didn't hurt. I must be a vampire.
Wait, there's no story on how he became a vampire?
No, there's not. Like literally in his own words, he was just like, yeah, one night I was born anew. I don't remember how it happened. Again, his mind goes through a lot of shenanigans, so it might just be something that he just lost it. But he has no recollection of how he became a vampire.
That's hilarious.
He doesn't know.
like in my mind, my first thought was he was like, I don't know, banging some like horror or like in like the brothel or something, and then she would just happen to be a vampire, and she was like munch, and he wakes up, and he's like, oh damn.
Yeah.
That's so. Oh damn. That's so goofy. Okay.
Yeah, that is a little goofy. And you know, when you're this ancient, even when you're going to all this trouble to like let survivors go and tell the tale of you, you know, history is a long time, and after a while you kind of sort of slip through the cracks of history because you're off just doing your own thing. Maybe you haven't had too many appearances and you just kind of slip through the cracks for a little while. And the next time we would hear about Luthor Harkon would be around 876 on the Imperial calendar, which essentially the Imperial calendar, that's 876 years after Sigmar becomes the first emperor. If you ever need like a little guiding point on how the Imperial calendar works, year 1 is Sigmar becoming the emperor.
Right.
And when
because Jesus.
Because Jesus. There's BC and yeah.
There's This is this is a bunch of BS before Sigmar. That's
so proper. Man, anything before Sigmar, BS.
Yeah, bullshit. This is BS.
Bullshit. That's so great. I never thought about that. I love it. But when Sigmar shows up again, it feels very much like almost like the last voyage of the Demeter from Dracula, like where he needs to cross the seas in a ship. And when that ship arrives in America, everyone is super dead and Renfield is absolutely out of his fucking gourd. In Luthor's case, however, he is on a ship and his coffin is being smuggled out of the Empire in Marienburg on a Norscan ship because the current emperor, Joachim II, had this silly, goofy little nickname of the Witch Hunter Emperor, and it wasn't a super great time to be an undead vampire lord. So this Norscan ship ends up heading south. And for reasons we will discuss in a minute, the Norscan longship ends up just broken apart on the shores of Lustria, which, if you remember, is that's Lizardman territory.
Right.
And shock of all shock, the crew of this ship had all either been enslaved or turned into undead puppets of Luthor Harkon, with the former captain of the ship, Black Jens, now serving Luthor as this sort of ghoulish monster. And to this day, that Norscan ship that crashed and broke up on the shores of Lustria is still Luthor Harkon's Vampire Coast flagship.
Oh, interesting. As in, it's still operational?
Yeah, I want to say, if I had to imagine it, I'd probably imagine it's sort of like, what's the ship that's like, oh yeah, you can repair it so many times, but is it still the ship?
Ship of Theseus.
The ship, yeah. I want to say it's something like that, where it's probably kind of ragged and it's been like, pieced back together so many times. It's probably nothing like that initial ship, but yeah. And to sort of give a little more context to that whole event, according to Harkon, he barely escaped, which makes quite a bit of sense because the Order of the Silver Hammer, the witch hunters that were chasing him, were an exceptionally ruthless lot. So having the go-ahead from the Emperor during this time to just be like, yeah, just go hunt witches was like huge. And for sort of how the ship ended up busted up on the shores of Lustria. The trip from Marienburg to Lustria, if we're like going to use real world comparable stuff, Marienburg is essentially, it's like where Venice would be. And Lustria is South America. And if history is any evidence on the length of time that this trip can take, it sums up sort of why this turned into a mess, because this is like old world fantasy, and this boat ride from South America from Venice to South America would probably take in the ballpark of 70 straight days of sailing.
That is true. And as we know, fantasy is far more dangerous to sail than 40K.
Oh, for sure. You said it, brother.
Yeah, everyone knows it's far more frightening over there in the olden days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. That's heading all the way down there. It's a big one.
Yeah, and who knows what sort of trials and tribulations they were already facing. And then you also have Harkon in there. So Harkon is considered the only true survivor of the journey, and the name of the ship was forever lost. Nobody remembers what the ship's actual name is, and Possum says the ship was lost along with the mortal memories of the rest of the crew. Yay!
Yay!
Everyone doesn't remember.
I was going to make a joke where like the ship's name was Forever Lost, and I was like, really, Forever Lost is a strange name.
Ha 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 ha. Yes. But again, Lustria, this is Lizardman territory, and Luthor can feel the magical energy surging from this place. He had specifically washed up on a place known as the Fire Serpent Island. And when he senses these just immense magical energies, he's just like, oh, I need to make Lustria mine. This is going to be where I make my undead empire. I am going to be the emperor that reigns over Lustria forever and all times. Which, as I said, it's common goal for vampires and the immortals to want something like that.
This is like a bit of a random aside here, but you know Deadlock, right? The new Valve game.
Yeah, Deadlock. Yeah.
So it's very good. I like it a lot. They added a new character named Mina, and I'm going to send you a photo of her right now because in fairness, she's this is a terrible photo because it's 215 pixels. In fairness, she's a bit of a baddie, but
oh, she is a baddie.
But she is she's a Nepo baby vampire. And she's like an extremely rich girl, and she married like a really, really rich husband. But before the marriage could happen, the husband got killed. And she was like, God damn it, my money. And
that
my first thoughts
for a vampire.
My first thought as you're describing Luthor, whatever, consistently is like, your vampires just like, they get really old and they're around forever. So they just want to like rule the world because they've done everything else already. My first thought went to this lady where she's just like, ugh, daddy, where's my like a Veruca Salt type shit, but vampire style.
Yep, because they're just alive for so long. And like you said, they've done everything. What else is there to do? Well, you can't kill me. I might as well rule the world. So yeah. But yeah, a terrifying warlord from an old world country going to a quote-unquote new world and claiming it as his own. It's never happened in history or in fiction. This is a totally brand new, 100% never before seen concept. And to do this, Luthor would spend his days using his sort of ungodly vampiric magical powers to sort of lead ships to be broken upon the shores of the Lustrian coasts. Or if a ship was foolish enough to stop onto his sort of little patch of land in Lustria, maybe looking for supplies, fresh water, food, or just to sort of rest and take a break, well, let's just say that ship would suddenly vanish, and the numbers of his undead army would suddenly grow substantially.
Oh, incredible. Fantastic. Interesting. Wait, so remind me, just because it's been a bit, the vampire courts are the ones that
counts, but yeah.
God damn it. Is there a court faction?
It wouldn't surprise me if the vampires had a court of their own.
So the vampire counts. Are they the ones that think that like they're all a bunch of nobles?
They are actually a bunch of nobles, because the vampire counts did end up making a lot of the nobility into vampires so that they were like the cream of the crop, as it were.
Which faction is the one that thinks they're like some high level aristocracy when in reality they're a bunch of like disgusting goobers?
Which one is that?
Warhammer Fantasy aristocrats that are ugly is what I'm typing in.
That almost sounds like a Draconian thing. What did you find?
I typed in Warhammer Fantasy aristocrats that are ugly. That's what I just typed in because I did the first response I got, Britonia.
Oh wow! I did say it sounded like a Bretonian thing.
That's not what I was getting at, but that's really funny.
If they're listening, there's a certain person that has a pancreas that doesn't work that is probably also laughing their ass off right now. So, it did sound like a Bretonian thing to me. You found it on Google. I guess that's just the way it is.
That's so funny. Okay. I mean, maybe it's I don't remember which one it is. It doesn't matter. I'm a little curious though. So Luthor is obviously the main vampire courts person, but like because he has an undead art. God damn it! Because he because he has an undead because he has an undead army. Are there like not that many genuine like major characters of the vampire coasts because of the like the way it is because they're like an undead army?
Kinda, yeah. I mean, there are a few characters, but yeah, the vampire coasts, it's mostly about Luthor and like his undead army for the most part.
Gotcha. Okay. I needed to be certain.
Okay. But business is booming for Luthor. Like, he's getting a lot of, like, his army is a proper threat now. And he's carved out a pretty good swath of the eastern coast on this southern Lustrian continent that he was on. High Elven ships and Norskin ships alike would just constantly go missing in that area. They'd be consumed by this sort of eerie fog, and there'd be like this sort of wail that would echo throughout the fog that if you tried to follow it, naturally you'd be broken up on the rocks of the shore and added to the undead empire. And the fog was just also, even if it wasn't breaking up on the rocks, there were also lots of these ghostly ships crewed by the dead, Luthor's undead sort of ghostly fleet that roamed the fog and would take ships down that wandered in. And so it became that this eastern coast that Luthor had carved out for himself with this eerie fog and his undead fleet and his army of the unliving would become known as the Vampire Coast.
I was hoping you would say counts to add to the bit.
This was his vampire court. Yeah. And chances are, if Luthor was content with this army, with the Vampire Coast that he had, and the numbers that he had, then things probably would have ended up significantly easier for him. But as we have said ad nauseum this episode, immortal vampires are really ambitious assholes. When you're immortal, your ego swells, your ambition swells, and Luthor Harkon is no different. He wanted literally all of Lustria to bend the knee to him, not just his little vampire coast. His hubris is so grand that Luthor literally crowns himself as Emperor of Lustria and says, Lustria now belongs to me. And he decided he was going to march into the jungles of Lustria because this is my land and I am going to claim it. And for a little extra context, the crowning that Luthor does for himself is actually kind of hilarious because it, as Possum says, it borders on just some goofy ass parody, because here's like the exact quote of when it happened. At last, Luthor Harkon was ready. Crossing the straits of Tlaxot with his army of the dead, he claimed Lustria for himself, and, in a bizarre parody of old world ceremony, had himself crowned emperor on a throne of bone under a purple and black canopy held aloft by zombies.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I'm getting the concept of Luthor correctly.
Mm-hmm.
The guy seems to be he's just a massive megalomaniac. Like he doesn't seem like he has
100%. Yeah.
Okay, he doesn't seem like he has any like grandiose goal or like vengeance or major character trait besides I want everything.
Yeah, pretty much. He wants Lustria to bend the knee to him, and he wants all of the magical energies that Lustria has to offer because he can feel them. That's pretty much it. That's his main ambition right now. And maybe once he probably figures if he claims Lustria, well, shoot, I'll take the rest of the known world too, right? Because he's a vampire. That's just kind of what they do.
That's kind of wait. I got to be honest. That's kind of sick. I kind of like him because I don't know. Sometimes I just really enjoy when the character is just like nah, bro, I'm evil. Like what's what's
like,
that one
like the Skaven? They're just comically evil.
Like the Skaven. I like the Tomb Kings because they're just so self-serving to a level of parody. But it reminds, I don't know what it is. I think it's like a Spider-Man comic where there's like a dinosaur guy and he's like, why dinosaur man? You could have used all this stuff to cure cancer. It's like, I don't want to cure cancer. I want to turn people into dinosaurs. I don't know.
A Spider-Man villain.
I'm sure someone. Okay, Spider-Man cure cancer. Spider-Man cure cancer. Wait, what? Britonia? No, I'm kidding.
Not again.
Not again. They keep arriving. Oh yeah, there it is. I found it. Hold on. I'll give you the image so that our viewers can look at it. With the DNA we liberated from the grave desecration, you call a museum. I have perfected the Saurianization, whatever process. You rice paper puppets will be given forms befitting Earth's dominant species. You can rewrite DNA on a fly and you're using it to turn people into dinosaurs, but with tech like that, you could cure cancer. But I don't want to cure cancer. I want to turn people into dinosaurs.
That's so funny, actually.
That's an actual quote.
Wow. All right. I mean, damn. That's a deep cut too.
I just makes me think like
Yeah.
I don't want to do the good things. I want to be evil. I want to control Lustria because I can.
Yeah, man, yeah, because I can, and because hey, it seems like there's some good stuff here.
What a baller! I like Luthor.
Yeah,
Luthor. Harkonnen.
But this, Harkonnen, yeah. Hamburger, cheeseburger, whopper. But this was kind of a fuck around and find out moment because Luthor, he figured he was just going to cleave through this dumb forest and claim what was rightfully his. They were just all going to bend the knee to him, and surely whoever was in there wouldn't be able to stand up to him. But the Lizardmen and their crazy forest and all of their crazy soldiers do not play around like that. And Possum has added maybe one of the funniest lines I think I have ever seen from one of the scripts that he's looked over. For context, imagine walking into an alligator enclosure with the Burger King crown on it and saying, "This land is my land now." The gators do not respect the Burger King.
That's such a funny way to put it. I mean, they don't respect the Burger King. You're so right.
The gators do not respect the Burger King.
That's so funny. I mean,
yeah, he's so right. That is essentially what Luthor's crown is. It is a self-appointed Burger King crown with no actual meaning to it, and he just rolls in being like, "Hey guys, this is mine now," and the gators are just like,
I find that even funnier too because like the Lizardmen, if I'm not mistaken, from our first episode, are kind of like nutty with it.
Oh, yes, they are crazy with it. Indeed, they're not to be underestimated or trifled with at all. Too true.
Yeah, they're pretty tough. I mean, Croak died and was like, "Nah,
nah, I'm him."
Yeah,
and then just. But and at the outset, things are so much tougher than he'd imagine, as we said. And granted, he is still like he's making a little progress because even though it's tough, every time he kills a lizard man, it's like, oh, I'll just add them to my undead army, and hooray, I've got new Lizardmen zombie puppets. So there's a little progress. But again, Lizardmen, they are hitting hard and they are giving him hell. But Luthor's just kind of like, okay, I just gotta make slow progress, add these Lizardmen to my forces, and eventually, just through a war of attrition, I'll probably win, because I'm immortal. That is until he came across the Slann.
Oh, yeah. Which those are the uber magical ones, right? Or wait, are those the magical ones or those the big tough ones?
They are the super powerful Lizardmen those were the ones that were like in direct contact with the old ones that were literally planning the terraforming of the old world. I believe they are considered to be the strongest magical entity in all of old world fantasy, or close to it. And no matter how hard Luthor tried, he could not conquer them. He apparently tried for over 1,000 years. And the Slann, they literally put up these sort of walls to stop him. The cities that make up the high country around the Lizardmen, which is sort of like a combination of both inhabited and sort of ruined cities. They put up like these physical barriers, but also these really strong magical barriers that sort of are meant to keep out the toughest of tough wizards. Like, that's by Slann standards. It's like these walls should keep out people that are like maybe a little less strong than a Slann. And so Luthor is trying to push through these walls and ransack these cities, but he's not strong enough. Even with his immortal army, he is not strong enough. The quote is, "It is as if a hand of iron presses his forces back." And even though it seems like, God, there's just no getting through, of course, Harkonnen, Luthor has all the time in the world, so he just keeps pushing and pushing. And naturally, at some point, Luthor's like, you know what? I want to juice up my magical powers. I want to find a way to channel my magic or change my magical abilities so that I can just, boom, brute force my way through these big, stupid walls that the Slann have set up. So he starts to explore other regions of Lustria that aren't as under lock and key by the Slann. And upon exploration of some of these ruins, he finds like some really magnificent ruins. Luthor and his vampire army would find this they'd find this massive vault. And he sees this vault and he's like, ooh, man, there's something good in there. I can feel it. I can feel the magic in there. There's something really good in there. And problem is, the doors to this vault were sealed tight with magical ruins. And anytime he tried to throw his entire undead army at this vault, tried to break through, but every time he sent a zombie at this wall, the glyphs in the vault would just they'd start glowing, and it seemed like they just canceled out Luthor's magic, and the undead zombies would just drop. It was almost like his undead magic got canceled. They'd stop being his minions and they would just go back to being undead.
Okay,
or they just go back to being dead.
Right, dead, basically.
And as you can imagine, Luthor was, to put it lightly, really fucking pissed about this. Like, again, I cannot he was so sure that there was some kind of really impressive treasure in there. And he was sure that if he broke into this vault, he'd find what he needed and the artifact he needed to boost his powers and finally get through those damn Slann bastards' barrier. So, Luthor's like, fine, I'll do it myself. And so he starts attacking this magical vault with all these glyphs, and he starts using his own power, not realizing that the security system on this vault was literally also built to stop some of the most powerful sorcerers in the world.
Well, yeah, because this is the Slann and the right,
mm-hmm.
And they're pretty good at that stuff.
They're pretty good at that stuff. So the brute force of his assault, combined with this sort of repelling effect of the glyph system, actually started to collapse the chamber around him. But the other thing that these glyphs do is that these glyphs are also designed to hold whoever is bombarding the vault. It holds them in place and starts to drain their life force at the same time. So this is a crazy trap card that he's invoked because it drains his magical power, it holds him in place, and it breaks the chamber, so he is about to get his ass crushed.
That's absolutely hilarious. Like, God damn it, I'll do it myself. Runs in. Like man, what are you gonna do? Drain me? Says man drained.
Yeah, says man that got drained. Yeah, what are you gonna do? Stab me? Says man that got stabbed. And, it might look like this is it for old Luthor, but, it takes a massive toll on him, but Luthor does manage to free himself from the glyphs shortly before the whole damn vault collapses and is swallowed into the earth. And when I say it took a massive toll on Luthor, oh boy. Luthor, because of his greed and lust for power here, he gets real fucked up. So there's like this huge magic backlash, and this magic backlash has literally shattered his mind and severed his connection to the winds of magic. He cannot use magic anymore. The only magic he can actually use is the magic he uses to make undead minions and control undead minions. All of his other stuff is just... It does say, though, that the other weird effect it had is he now, because of all that weird magical energy, he has like an anti-magic field around him, which, not to boss baby this, but that kind of sounds like some Blank or Sisters of Silence shit. But I don't think I got confirmation on this. I was just told that the magical backlash shattered his mind and severed his connection to the winds of magic.
I mean, that still sucks a lot.
Yeah. That's not great. And also, when I say his mind was like, broken, that's like literally. Because his very consciousness was shattered into several different personalities vying to be the dominant one. So he's just personality here, personality there. He is just going full Louis Kablooey in his brain, and each of his personalities are fighting each other to be the dominant one that gets to control the body. And when this battle is raging in his mind with all of these different personalities, if there is no dominant one, because they're all fighting and nobody has full control, Luthor is just kind of sitting there, unmoving, catatonic, and motionless as this battle sort of rages around in his brain.
Wait, so he... I mean, we're going to boss baby it again. This reminds me of Ultix.
Yeah.
With his various like scarab personalities in his head.
Mm-hmm.
Or sorry, they became scarabs, but yeah.
I was thinking the same thing, except Ultix was able to control which one got to be active, and he could like turn them off, couldn't he? Or
yeah, he kind of like adjusted their functions a bit. Yeah, he had more. He had so this is like literally people being all like, oh, it's my turn, and he's just sitting there like,
Yeah, and they're just kind of like vying for control in there.
That's so bizarre. Okay.
Yeah. And I don't know exactly how many personalities he's got, but it does state that his personality was fractured in a dozen different facets. So there's at least a dozen different personalities just kind of boiling around in there trying to gain control. And I figured, since we're talking about him, I might as well mention kind of the more interesting personalities that the wiki mentioned.
Yo, no, please. So, I mean, how many does he have? Do we know? Like a number?
There's at least a dozen. So there could be a dozen, there could be more. I don't know if they're further fractured, but these are sort of the interesting ones that the wiki mentioned. So there is a personality is Wilhelmina, who is a frightened little girl she's totally cool if you treat her well and treat her nice. But apparently, if she can't find her doll Anna, then she just flies into a murderous fucking rage. There is a personality called Sancho, who is a very mild-mannered scholar from Estalia, and is in Lustria studying insects, which makes sense because Lustria has its huge rainforest hellscape full of all that nonsense. And apparently Sancho is rather fond of feeding his apprentices to his insect specimens.
Wait. So I'm sorry. I have to feel because this is taking a turn, and I'm substantially more interested now. Um,
in his personality.
yeah, well, yeah, because I'm like, does his personalities that vie for control, like, because he has an undead army, right?
Yep.
It is an undead army,
Mm-hmm.
which I assume, due to magic or whatever the reason is, do his every whim.
Yes.
Okay, so does that mean his undead army is controlled in various ways and methods based on the personality he currently is having?
I have to believe they are. I didn't actually see anything that specifically said that, but I have to believe that if his army is controlled by like the little girl who's just all cool until she finds her doll, they're probably all chilling. A part of me thinks it would be hilarious if the personality that won is Wilhelmina and she just wants to have a tea party because she's just a little girl with her doll. And so you just got zombies sitting around with their pinkies out having imaginary tea parties with like teddy bears and shit.
That's so funky to me. But
Yeah.
it kind of is sick. I don't know. I'm imagining that, like, oh, she doesn't get her doll, and so he goes like ballistic and just gets like goes insano mode with the amount of murder he commits. I don't know. It's like I think are they a playable faction in Total War Warhammer 3?
Luthor actually is. Luthor and the Vampire Coast are playable in Total War Warhammer.
I need more information on this. This is
Warhammer 3, I think it is.
I mean, if it's not Total War Warhammer 3, I imagine it's 2, because I think 2 has all the factions, but...
Yeah. Well, it's weird, because it's like, it's all about, like, the DLC factions, right, or something, and, like, I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, you can play as Luthor Harkon and the Vampire Coast in one of the Total War Warhammers, yeah. And, apparently, sometimes there is a personality that is just straight up an old one. He firmly believes one of the personalities is just one of the old ones that communed with the Slann, and this old one refuses to give anyone its name because it's incomprehensible to mortals, and simply hearing it would drive you insane. And naturally, this personality hates the Slann because he firmly believes that the Slann were the ones that stole his magic.
That's funny.
Right? And so those were like the three really interesting, because the other ones are kind of just like, they didn't seem that interesting to me, so I didn't really talk about them. But about the only thing all of the personalities can agree on is they need to find a way to help Luthor. They need to find a way to bring his fractured mind back together and make him whole again. And so their new goal, basically no matter what the personality is, their goal is to just be absolute pests to the Lizardmen of Lustria and do their damnedest to just yoink whatever shiny magical artifact they can get their grubby little hands on. And apparently, the thing that Luthor and his personalities are after the most, like the thing they want more than any artifact, they want to find mummified remains of a Slann. That's what they want. They're like, ooh, if we could study the Slann's biology, if we could do some funky stuff with it, oh man, I bet that would not only fix us, it might give us our magical powers back, and oh, that's the stuff. And it should be noted that sometimes when the burden of his condition is too much to bear, or like when he's in like that catatonic state because there's a battle raging in his head and there's no dominant winner, his first in command, Black Gens, is sort of his council aide. They usually rule in his stead when he's sort of in like his catatonic state. Black Gens rules in his stead, and they try not to mention word about Luthor's condition because who knows what someone would do if they could find Luthor in his catatonic state. So Black Gens has been keeping this a secret for a long time, but who knows when it's going to slip. Because little notes about Black Gens. As we mentioned earlier, this is the original captain of the ship that was carrying Harkon and became a ghoul. And he did this willingly, by the way. Black Gens became a ghoul kind of willingly. He's retained, a lot of his intelligence, but again, his memories have rotted away. And due to Black Jen's ability to hold down the fort, Luthor has given him the title of Chancellor. You're my Chancellor. I trust you. Business has not ever gone awry when I've let you do your thing. And Luthor genuinely trusts him, which, vampire, you don't get a vampire's trust very easily. But Black Jen's is just the trusted aide of Luthor. But there are a couple of things that are becoming more frequent. These meetings that are convened because Luthor is not in his right mind, those are becoming a lot more frequent. So he's out of commission a lot more than usual. And the other problem is Black Jen's is starting to remember his past. He has this sort of nagging voice in his head that just keeps repeating, my ship, my crew, my life. And it's getting louder and louder and louder.
I like how you said not in his right mind, and I know that's a pun or whatever simultaneously.
Yeah, a little bit. He's just a silly little guy, right? He's just a silly little guy with, But Luthor and his undead army are an absolute pest to the Lizardmen. Also because normally their horrible jungle and all of the insects and wildlife and the climate of Lustria in general sort of act as like your natural defense. But the undead don't really care about all that shit. They just keep surging forward, and whatever gets killed along the way, voomp, gets added to the numbers as an undead zombie. So if the Lizardmen aren't paying attention, they could very easily get overwhelmed and lose countless artifacts or even whole cities that aren't being protected by the Slann. But for the most part, the Lizardmen and the Slann are able to, hold off the important advances of Luthor and his undead army. And so Luthor comes to the conclusion that his army is just, it's just not big enough. If only there was a way to bolster my numbers.
Well, I know how he does that. Yeah, and the secret is killing.
Yeah, the secret is murder. So for like several centuries, Luthor is using the enchantments that he can still use. He's using his undead army, and he's drawing more and more ships off course. He's reanimating more and more victims into his army. After a while, he starts sending out these undead pirates on their creepy, battered ghost ships. But now he's sending them all across the old world, not just the Vampire Coast. They're not just swirling around in the mist in the Vampire Coast. He's sinking vessels all over the old world, and they would bring boatloads of victims back to Luthor, ready to be turned into more numbers for his undead army. And so vast and large was his new undead horde that when Luthor marched them towards it's this temple city called Axelotl, Axlotl.
Wait, you mean the creature, the like the animal?
Isn't that how you say Isn't that how you say
Axelotl? Yeah.
Axelotl. Yeah,
I'm just surprised they
right?
I'm just surprised they called it that. Yeah.
Yeah. But when he marched to the temple city of Axelotl, there was no stopping them. The Lizardmen could not halt their advance, and when they got to the temple city itself, well, according to the wiki, the destruction was so complete and so total that not a single stone stood upon another when they were done. And even though I think the Slann and the Lizardmen had cleared out, the more important artifacts. They got all the artifacts that they possibly could, the really important ones. Luthor still made out like a bandit. He still was able to grab countless arcane artifacts that the priests just didn't have time to secure. And because of his sort of raising of Axelotl and taking all those artifacts, Luthor very quickly shot up to just public enemy number one in the eyes of the Slann and the Lizardmen.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I know they didn't already like him to start with, but this seems like the next level of it all.
Yep. And Possum has provided me with a word-for-word description of what occurred from the Codex book. Harkon mobilizes a vast horde of zombie pirates and marches out of the fetid swamps of the Vampire Coast. The host is enveloped by a dank, stinking mist that seems to creep along as the undead advance. Despite heroic rearguard actions by desperate skink sentinels, the horde falls upon the temple city of Axelotl, slaughters its defenders, and casts it down so completely it is said that no stone now stands upon another. Though the skink priests evacuated the most precious of artifacts, Harkon returns to his lair with countless items of arcane power. And then Possum says, time for a really sane and normal quote from Harkon. Lizard stone tumble and dead gray meat my supper. The names of the eldest spill from my lips, my love. Axelotl, the city of lizard no more. Its secret places, secrets abhorred.
Oh yeah, he seems like he's well adjusted.
Oh yeah, totally. But even with this, even after raising Axelotl to the ground, he's like, you know what? I need even more soldiers. And at this point in old world history, the fledgling mortal races are starting to sprout up a little more. And I have to read this. So Possum tells me it's time for me to drop one of the most sigh-inducing names and dates in the world of Warhammer Fantasy within the context of everything with the New World. Legit, though, this is peak. Stop me if you've heard this one before. So, Harkon arrived on the shores of Lustria in 876, making him the first Old World entity to show up on the shores. In the year 888, a Norse adventurer by the name of Eric the Lost seeks gold across the sea. He instead finds the Southlands, but his son, Lost Ericsson, not joking, that's his son's name.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Nope. Not joking.
Lost Ericsson, huh?
Yep, all one word. Capital L, everything else lowercase.
Okay, continue.
Lands on the shores of the New World. Though Norse raiding parties occurred during this time, thus creating the legend of the Amazons, Harkon is relatively uncontested around here outsider-wise. But then, and brace yourself for this one, in 1492, a man named Marco Colombo.
Are you? Oh my God.
Quote unquote, discovers Lustria. He then sends word back of great riches and amazing lands to the Old World, and many folks of all races travel to the New World to follow his example. So, pretty much everyone under the sun decides to try and lay claim to the New World thanks to Marco Colombo.
And Lost Ericsson.
And Lost Ericsson, of course. But yeah, wow, such a fun thing that has no historical bearing whatsoever, right?
That's about as bad as the Obi-Wan Sherlock Costell Inquisitor from the first. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. But with all of these new people surging in, trying to find these riches, Harkon naturally finds them to be quite easily corruptible with just the right gentle nudge. So Luthor sends out messengers and emissaries with sort of a gift to any potential allies. This gift is the Ebony Skull. And here's a quote from Luthor describing what these Ebony Skulls are. Mine emissaries make gifts to greetsome strangers. The skulls of the unliving carry soul scum skimmies. Jeez, let's try this again. This is a mouthful. Mine emissaries make gifts to greetsome strangers. The skulls of the unliving carry soul scum skimmings. Brine song echoing still. These they accept, for bauble and toy is all. In doing acceptance, They make a basement, for debt is eternal beyond mortal men's ken.
No,
So,
all right.
essentially, when you are gifted this ebony skull, you can either like hang on to it or whatever, but if you smash it on the ground and you break it, you will have the aid of Luthor's undead army, vast as it is. They will come and they will help you and they will do whatever it is you need them to do. But upon using the ebony skull, you become eternally indebted to Luthor.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that sounds like Luthor's play.
Yeah, right? And then here's like the description of the ebony skulls, literally just straight from the Codex. The ebony skulls are gifts from Harkon and are carried by his emissaries to be presented to potential allies. Each is an inky black skull that must be cast to the ground to unlock the dark powers within. Once broken, the owner may call upon the service of Luthor's servants and will thus be eternally in his debt. In a separate part, it describes them as having the power to call forth Harkonnen's servants, the reanimated corpses of seemingly drowned off the vampire coast. So again, essentially, you throw the skull, thriller zombies help you out, you're soulbound to Harkon. You don't immediately die from using the ebony skull, like you don't immediately become part of his army, but you are bound in life and death to eternally serve Luthor Harkon if he calls you.
Okay, so you're making the deal.
Yeah, you're making a deal with the devil, essentially. And with these new ebony skull servants in tow, along with his sort of ever-growing vampire coast of undead, Luthor has powered up significantly. Like, he's really taking the fight to the Lizardmen, and he is plundering a lot of artifacts, and he is being just the worst menace to Lustria that he possibly can. And at some point, even Morathi, which if I don't know if you remember her from the High Elves episode, she was
Morathi?
She was like a Slaaneshi priest.
Oh,
did a lot of stuff with them. Shoot, I can't remember the evil dark elf's name.
I think I remember the evil dark elf stuff. I think I'm remembering.
Yeah, that was his mother, I believe.
Yeah, wasn't there? It's his mom.
Yeah, well, that's the dark elf's mom, I believe, where he kind of wants to kill her, but he's like, well, shit, that's my mom, and like,
right,
well,
okay,
she's kind of helping out with a lot of the stuff, and
I kind of remember that. I think.
Yeah, it's been a little bit. Even I'm like, I don't even remember the dude's name, and he was like a pivotal part of the story. It was like, I think it started with an M too. Anyway, doesn't matter. Morathi realizes how strong Luthor is, and so she strikes a treaty with him. And, you know, together with like the Drukhari, Jesus, Dark Elves and Luthor's undead army, they have this treaty, and together their forces attack a temple city called Chocoblocks, which just sounds weird to me. I don't know if I'm saying that right. That doesn't sound right. Chocoblocks? Anyway. And with an absolutely staggering force of undead legions, basically keeping all of the Lizardmen defenses occupied, Morathi and her Druchi, that's the word. Thank God I wrote it down. It's not Drukhari, it's Druchi. Anyway, Morathi and her Druchi basically steal everything that is not bolted down in this city's sacred sites. And Morathi and her crew are making off with so much good loot, just artifact after artifact. And these are ancient artifacts from long past, and it's just, oh man. And oddly, while they're all making off with all these great artifacts, Luthor gets he gets really uptight about this one specific piece of treasure. It's this chest that has lots of black pearls in it. Supposedly, it is, they are just brimming with power, supposedly. And they never specifically say why he gets so uptight about wanting these, but it's just assumed that he's like, oh yeah, these are powerful Slann artifacts. They have a lot of potential to them, and surely having these black pearls is going to be a potential step forward in bringing my personalities back together and making everything right. Problem is, it is a very, very poor choice by Luthor to show that you want something really bad in front of a dark elf.
Yeah,
Because
he's
this
like,
display,
ooh,
yeah,
how can, what can I do?
yeah, because he's just like, no, I want that. No, hey, come on, I want that. You can have the other stuff. I want that. Come on, I want that. And this display kind of pisses off Morathi because she's like, I don't know why you're being so grubby about it, but I don't like it. And you're just really annoying me right now. And Morathi does what any good Druchii would do in this situation. She double crosses his ass and leaves him sealed in one of the treasure vaults.
Slay.
Yeah. And I wanted to know what ends up happening to him, because this is not Luthor dying. This is not the end of Luthor's story. So according to Possum, the specific line is that he was trapped in there to be an unexpected gifts for the inhabitants of the temple city that were so outraged that, they would invade and they would steal all the artifacts. What the hell? And there's no information on how he got out. Possum says likely the inhabitants opened the vault and were just jump scared because, oh my God, it's Luthor. And in that moment of surprise, he was probably able to get back to normal and actually fight his way out. He was no longer trapped. And also, one thing to note is that this does happen about 50 or so years before the end times. So once we get him in end times, he's been bored for a while. So there are no deets about it. But, whoever opened that door, rest in peace, because they probably got absolutely slaughtered by
Yeah. Also, wow, we now return to dark elves, or never to be
the Druchii.
never to be trusted, messed with in any way.
Yeah, true. And so honestly, until end times, that's about where Luthor's story ends. Is he gets double crossed by Morathi, he gets trapped in the vault, and it's presumed at some point he gets let out because, oh my God, what is this in the vault? Holy shit! And then, but this would be a good time to sort of just briefly go over sort of the Vampire Coast itself. Because we sort of briefly were like, oh yeah, he sort of, patched out this area and all that stuff. But there's actually a couple cities in here, and there are actually a couple things worth noting. So the Vampire Coast itself is located on sort of the northeast shore of Lustria. It's described as just this inexplicably foggy region with a terribly thick and vicious mangrove jungle and swamps for miles. And once Luthor took over this area, he had no idea how to rule it. So he decided to tap into his memory banks, and he sort of took a page out of the Empire's book when it came to how do you form a region? How do you rule a region? How do you divvy everything up? And so the Vampire Coast is divided into 6 different provinces. 5 of them are at the mouths of rivers, and 1 is an Imperial district that makes up the Blood Swamps and New Becafen.
The Blood Swamps?
The Blood Swamps.
The hell is that? No, I don't care about New Becafen. Screw that. What, Blood Swamps?
Yeah, it's just a district that makes up the Blood Swamps. It's just a cool name. Although this is Lustria, it might be a swamp full of blood.
I was about to say, I feel like it probably would be a swamp full of blood.
It probably is a swamp full of blood that just, people wandered into haphazardly and got eaten by the swamp, and now it's just bloody. It could be.
Huh.
Even though you don't care about New Becafen is actually, kind of a funny town. So New Becafen is the only actual quote-unquote city in the coast. It has about 2,500 citizens, including humans, dwarves, halflings, but it also has a sizable undead population that remains uncounted. But New Becafen has a much more understandable and realistic purpose for a vampire coast. New Becafen is essentially a food reserve place in the event that the seas are no longer traversable for whatever reason.
Oh, food reserve?
Yes, so the population is kept nice and happy and fat, and in the event that something happens, let's say all of Harkon's ships just break, and he can't traverse the sea, or some weird thing happens and the seas just disappear for some reason, and it's like, shit, we have no contact with the outside world, right? If you're stuck on Lustria, Harkon, a vampire, and his vampire army would be really, really hungry.
Right. Okay, sorry. Food reserves for vampires.
Yes.
Right. Got it. Got it. I had a brain fart. Yes.
It's okay. In fact, Harkon calls this town, I'm gonna butcher this, Speiskemmer? Speisekemmer, which translates to larder. And for those who don't know, a larder is essentially a food cupboard.
That's funny.
So New Becafen is the emergency food reserves for Harkon and any other vampire.
All right, never mind. Screw the blood swamps. This is way better.
Yeah, I was a big fan of that. And, this is going to confuse you even more because all of these provinces in the vampire coasts do in fact have a count that tends to it most of the time like a ghoul, but one county does not have a count, and for good reason. Way back when Harkon initially fled, he fled on the ship because the witch hunters. A witch by the name of Ketterlin joined him. And as she was fleeing the witch hunters, she follows Harkon. She's kind of infatuated with Harkon. And, upon arrival in Lustria, she was brought before Luthor, and she swore to use her witch powers to bring him glory. And Luthor responded with, "Oh, thou shall," and proceeded to paralyze her with the old vampiric stare. And once paralyzed, she was tossed into the waters where she drowned and became a siren. Well, this is Warhammer, so she became a Syrene, Syreen.
Oh, of course. How dare we?
Legally distinct siren. Sorry. After this, he wiped his hands and thought that the deed was done. But as it turns out, this was a very, very bad move on Luthor's part because she was so filled with rage that she didn't actually transform into a mindless Syrene. Ketterlin retained not only her memories, but also most of her magic powers as well, and she became a bane to Harkon. Each time he sent up a new count for this region, she would kill them. He went through dozens of counts before he was like, all right, fine, that's enough. You've made your point. You're not happy. I shouldn't have drowned you. So let me make you an offer, okay? No more of this you serve me stuff, okay? I am going to promote you to my sort of equal-ish ally, okay? And all you have to do...
Ish.
Yeah, ish. Because it's Luthor, right? He's an undead vampire. He's like, I'll promote you to ally-ish. And in exchange, all you gotta do is be a siren. Draw sailors in, crash their ships with your siren song so I can get more soldiers, and then we'll be square, okay? And this was good enough. And she was like, all right, fine. That's good enough for me. So there's no count there. There's just the siren. There's just Ketterlin the siren drawing in soldiers. And she has since been known as the Brine Wife. She is an uncontrollable force of nature that even Luthor fears.
Hell yeah. That's kind of sick, actually.
That is kind of sick. I kind of like that a little bit. I'm glad Possum added that little bit at the end. But yeah, that's about it. That's all we have at the moment for Luthor, Harkon, and the Vampire Coast. And again, they are the Vampire Coast counts are going to be pretty important for end time. So this is not the last time you will hear about them in an episode, but that is the last time for this episode.
All right. I mean, I got to be honest. I think Luthor kind of rules.
Yeah, Luthor's kind of a quirky little weird vampire with multiple personality disorder, unfortunately.
It's just really funny. Like, I don't know. I find that really funny. He's just kind of, I don't know. He's just like, he's a shithead. Like he starts off as like a megalomaniac, and then he becomes a vampire because of, some brothel. That's my head canon.
Your theory, that's the theory you're going with?
Yeah, something like that.
Vampire brothel, sure.
And then he's like, God, I can't wait to rule the world. And then after that, he's like, damn. After that, he's like, damn, I want to take over all of these lizards. Oh crap, I got BPD.
Yeah, pretty much. That is pretty much the TLDR of Luthor, Harkon, and the Vampire Coast.
That is so funny.
I do love that old world fantasy is so willing to be so like weird and quirky and like, oh yeah, he's a megalomaniac, but it's also kind of hilarious.
Yeah,
they're okay with being like humorous and funny and just about like everything, about even something as serious as this.
Yeah, it's just so like he's just awful. He reminds me like that's one of the reasons I like Cetra so much.
Because he's just awful.
He's just like a terrible guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Too true. And same with Luthor. He hasn't done a good deed his whole damn life.
That's sick as hell.
Yeah. And we'll talk about them more in later episodes for sure.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, brother.
All right. I say this has been a rousing success.
Nice. Always love to hear that at the end of an episode. Rousing success. Job well done. Let's go.
Job's done. What? You never...
Can we end the episode on job's done?
I mean, we can, but like, I get the feeling you don't know what that's... Do you know what that's from?
No.
See, that's why we can't end the episode on that. Like, what do you mean you don't know where that's from?
What's that from?
It's from the Warcraft. Like not World of Warcraft, like the...
Oh, like the RTS one from like forever ago?
The RTS one from forever ago.
Like Warcraft, the original one?
Yes, Warcraft, the original one.
Not like the hit MMO. Okay. Okay. I didn't realize that was... I mean, I played that one a little when I was like a wee little baby lad.
Good grumble. I'm gonna keep grumbling. All right, we're gonna end the episode now. All right, goodbye, everyone. Job's done.
Job's done.